About 5 months ago, I was attacked by a rabid man who bit me, turning me into a rabies-infected sex demon.
Come out from the private! Come out from the private!
Now, for any of you not familiar with rabies, rabies can lead to symptoms like violent behavior, barking, and chasing after others, and even in extreme cases, it can lead to homoerotic gooning. Now, you're probably thinking, that is so horrible you got rabies, but at least you're doing better now. And you're right, I am better. I actually feel better than I felt in my entire life. Because much like Spider-Man, instead of going to a hospital to check out my infected bite, I let my rabies fester and embraced it to become the ultimate life form. In my rabified state, I can now do amazing things like summon enraged furries to fight by my side, create giant meteors big enough to destroy Ohio, but most impressively, after training my new abilities to the max, I can summon a 6'5" American man who is ready to colonize anything in sight. Using my new abilities, I want to spread my rabies to everyone, and there is no better place to do that than in Age of Mythology Retold. In this game, you can create 300 Spartan soldiers, make large armies of mythical creatures, and lay down siege on your enemies using catapults. However, today I will attempt to beat the game using only rabies-infested wild animals and priests who can heal said animals. But believe it or not, there are people in the world who do not want to become a rabid-infected sex demon like myself. These people consist of the Chinese, Northern Europeans, one of my subscribers who escaped out of my sex dungeon, and lastly, the god of the underworld. If you are any of the people I listed above, congratulations. I'm gonna give you rabies by any means necessary. So I set out to create my army of rabid animals who can infect all of those who oppose me. Starting off, it was just me, a Catholic priest who was registered in 49 states. That can really mean whatever you want it to. 3 gooners who were willing to support my cause, and the first member of my glorious army, a baboon named Steve. After using my god-given ability, I discovered that the Chinese were building up their own defenses just a few meters away from me. At the moment, our army is currently just some random monkey and a Catholic priest. So in order to deal with them, I need to increase the size of my army. Currently, at level 1 in the tech tree, we only have the ability to summon monkeys to defend ourselves. Outside of throwing shit at their enemies, these creatures are extremely weak and really only good at scouting. However, if I were to progress throughout the tech tree, I'd be given access to all sorts of freaky wild animals. Some of these include hyenas, rhinoceros rexes, I don't know. However you say multiple rhinoceros. And lastly, elephants, the most powerful wild animal in the game. But these creatures were much later in the tech tree. So my first goal was to get to the classical age where I could access hyenas. To do so, we built a temple where we spent all day and night worshipping furries and femboys. After a few hours of worship, the god Anubis answered our prayers. He gave us access to a power that allows us to summon a bunch of venomous serpents, increase the amount of faith gain while worshipping, and of course, the ability to produce men in fursuits that will pounce on any unsuspecting individuals. However, as I mentioned, I'll only be using wild animals in this playthrough, so I deleted the furry man out of existence and summoned some hyenas and gazelles in his place. As I began worshipping more strange gods to summon more advanced animals, the Chinese soon attacked me. Now, normally an attack this early would have been pretty fucking easy to deal with. However, may I remind you, I am using hyenas and gazelles to defeat soldiers in silver-plated armor, and the Chinese are using teleporting wildebeests that wield katanas in their mouths. So I think it was an understatement to say that the battle was a little bit unfair. Thankfully, I had researched technology to turn my standard watchtowers into defensive bunkers that shoot arrows. Now, some of you might say that using defensive bunkers is technically cheating as there are probably humans shooting from them. But to that I say, please post all of your hateful comments underneath the video so I can aura farm you for views. After killing all of their troops and losing about half of mine in battle, this run was starting to seem a little bit hopeless. If I got attacked like this again, I would never achieve my dream of world rabification. So as any helpless man would do when they're in a time of need, I prayed to the furry gods once more. This time, instead of being granted hyenas and gazelles, I was granted giraffes and a Florida man's wet dream, crocodile pets. Even more importantly than the pets, I was granted the ability to turn my base into a stronghold that could research faster, train troops faster, and shoot a shit ton of arrows. This is when I realized just how broken my Egyptian god, Set, was. You see, by gaining access to the god Skemet, I was able to summon giraffes, which are horrible fighters, but amazingly tasteful meals. Do you know how many people a giraffe can feed? Well, according to Age of Mythology, one giraffe can feed about 6 hungry gooners. That means for every one giraffe I create, hunt, and then kill, I can create 6 more villagers. This is what I like to call the infinite money glitch. By infinitely spamming giraffes, gathering their food, and selling their food for gold and wood, I can make a crap ton of money. If you aren't familiar with the Egyptian class in Age of Mythology, unlike the Norse and Greek factions where most buildings cost a combination of wood, food, and gold to make, most Egyptian buildings only cost gold. The only issue is that training all of these villagers to create my base would normally take forever, but using the increased research speed of the stronghold and my pharaoh to empower the building, this almost doubled the research speed. I was able to go from around 10 villagers to 30 in about 3 minutes. For context, this normally would have taken around 6 minutes to do. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but god damn it, if it wasn't, they weren't trying hard enough, because my Rome was built in about 5 minutes, where we had multiple strongholds, walls, towers, and a small army of rapid animals consisting of several hyenas and a few crocodiles. For just a small amount of time, I felt like I could actually stand a chance in defeating the other armies. If we take a look at the leaderboard, it really didn't seem like I was doing all that bad. If Hades was the fart, then I was the shit, because my army of wild animals was somehow almost twice as strong as the god of the underworld. However, Northern Europe was getting concerningly strong, and I hadn't come in contact with their society yet. And of course, moments after building up my army, defenses, and walls, all hell broke loose. Up until this point, I was protecting my base using guerrilla warfare strategies. Since enemies aren't able to walk through the trees, I use them as cover. I built a decent kill box that required enemies to go around the trees and the walls in order to attack me. While the enemies would be moving to a new area, I'd blast them with giant arrows from my watchtower. However, as many of you know, most of Northern Europe worshipped strange sexual beings in order to provide them happiness. Some of the happiest countries in the world are Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. The source of the happiness that runs rampant through this region is no coincidence. I am fully convinced that these countries in this region perform strange homoerotic rituals that give them happiness in exchange for becoming indentured servants to sex demons. And it turns out my hypothesis was spot on. Using the power of their sex demons and extremely happy Swedish men, they made my guerrilla warfare strategy obsolete by literally turning the trees against me. These walking, breathing, demonic amalgamations of wood left an opening in my walls and began attacking my base. If that wasn't enough, it seems like the Norse already had their own rabies-infested animals, because they called forth a fumble winter, an event where dozens of rapid wolves spawned inside of my walls and began attacking all of my troops. Now, I'd like to tell you that using my hyenas and crocodiles, we fought back against the Swedish folk and easily destroyed them. However, I'm gonna be honest with you. Playing this game without actual soldiers fucking sucks. So yes, not only did they manage to kill all of my animal army that I had amassed, but they also managed to annihilate my pharaoh who was producing said wild animals. The only reason I even came close to surviving this attack was because as I progressed from the heroic age to the mythic age, several new animals spawned in my base, including one of the most powerful units at my disposal, the elephant. But it only lived for about 3 seconds before it got absolutely destroyed. The next few events that took place really were an emotional roller coaster. It consisted of spending several minutes farming up resources to create another army of elephants, and then every elephant immediately getting killed by things like a giant water-bending dragon that shot lightning from its mouth. I would then get attacked by a combination of both the Chinese and the Norse at the same time, leaving my base in complete ruins and forcing me to rebuild. Now, up until this point, this has probably been the hardest challenge that I have ever done, and it looked like there was probably a 0% chance of me completing it. However, if I were to, I don't know, maybe summon a literal god, this challenge could be a little bit more achievable. Now, I can already hear you guys murmuring to yourselves, Frostburns, God is not a wild animal, but what if he was? What if I had already infected you with rabies years ago, and everything you've been seeing up to this point was an illusion of your rabies-induced state? I mean, why else are you watching a video with a big-ass thumbnail that just says rabies on it? I mean, clearly something must be wrong with your mental state. So I'm not gonna trust any of the things that you're thinking. Instead, I will continue worshiping this giant eagle-looking thing as my rabies-infested god of this world. Anyways, after I summoned God, 10 wild elephants, and some priests, it was time for me to go on the offensive. After all, the Norse were building a wonder that would grant them, I quote, world-ending powers. And yeah, I can't really let that happen. So I sent my army across the river to kill the Viking scum. In their base lay beautiful homes, all made of wood and stone. However, the Europeans should have thought twice about living in happy, beautiful homes. Because yes, they were pretty, but they weren't exactly that resistant to my giant meteors that rained down from the sky onto them. And yeah, these destroyed about half the homes and set them on fire. So take that, Europeans. Once the meteors had hit, I sent in my elephants and my priests to deal with the one settlement while my giant titan took care of the other. If you couldn't have guessed by now, literally every elephant died in the process and they did absolutely nothing to the settlement. But that's okay, because who needs elephants when you have a literal god on your side? After some time, my titan ran rampant through the base and began to destroy the last settlement. In the meantime, while all of my attackers were out, the Chinese took this as an opportunity to attack me. Thankfully, my defenses were able to hold them back. That's when my titan finished off the last settlement of the Norse, and as he was on the verge of death, I sent him back home so I could still use him later. Now, I'm not proud to admit this, but I really wasn't paying that much attention because as I was busy destroying Norse civilization, the Chinese were building their own Titan Gate, and soon they summoned their own god who was just as strong. But unlike mine, he was full health and mine was about to die. As the Chinese began stomping out the last embers of the Norse society that I left off, I began preparing to make the last stand at my base. Here, I built dozens of more turrets, stronger walls, and a choke point of strongholds for the Titan to attack through. At this point, Hades is essentially completely removed from the game. I think he tried to surrender in like the first 15 minutes of gameplay, but I thought it was a tutorial and I accidentally said that he couldn't, so he's kind of just been standing there the whole time. And the Norse are nothing but embers of a society, so I knew I was the only target left for the Chinese. But there is a reason in this playthrough I allowed both wild animals and priests. You see, Egyptian priests are pretty useless unless they are fighting myth units or healing people. When fighting a standard unit, they probably do less damage than a villager, but when fighting a myth unit, they do 5 times more damage. As the stone giant is indeed a myth creature, we were about to absolutely fuck his ass up. As the Titan attacked my base, I found the first use for my elephants that I had all game. The Titan will focus troops over buildings when attacking. My priests were the only reason I could actually kill this thing, but he was headed straight towards them. So imagine my surprise when I found out that elephants are pretty good bullet sponges against the Titan. Because they are so damn big, the Titan couldn't physically move past the elephants in order to get towards my priest. And although they did basically no damage, they did have a crap ton of health. So I used my priest to blast the crap out of the Titan with magical fairy wands, while my elephants got compressed into 2D texture packs. After their Titan god was killed and mine was severely damaged due to the Norse siege, there was a small bit of a standstill between our bases. The Chinese would send a squadron of vandalizers that would break my walls and kind of damage some turrets nearby, and immediately get penetrated by a million arrows and die. And I would go rebuild my wall over and over again, wasting valuable gold resources. At this point in the game, every single gold tile in the game has been farmed. But remember when I told you about the infinite money glitch with the giraffes earlier? Not only did I use that to build up some of my walls, but I also used it to get a taste of that world-ending power that the Norse were trying to unravel earlier. After fending off several siege attacks on my base, the wonder was finally complete. And let's just say, it was fucking awesome. The wonder gave my Titan 100% extra attack damage, 100% extra hit points, 20% extra speed, it gave me 1 favor per second, and on top of that, god powers that I use favor to cast, like casting giant meteors down from the sky, were now 75% cheaper and had a 75% less cooldown time. So I think you know where this is going. Release the elephants! As the Chinese leader finally begged us to show him mercy, we finally conquered him underneath our iron boot. And now we can spread our rabies to the entire world. Now that no one is in my way, who's gonna stop me? No one. You and everyone you know will become a rabies-infected sex god like myself, and soon be able to rain meteors from the sky. With that being said, I know Age of Mythology is not a super popular game, but I've been playing this game since I was about 10 years old, and it was kind of super nostalgic to go back and bring some light on it for the community. This isn't a sponsor or anything, but if the game looked fun, make sure to check it out. I plan to do this challenge as kind of just a one-off video for the game, but if you guys want to see more twists or fun challenges like this in Age of Mythology, make sure to drop a like. Not only does it support me, but it also lets me know that you love the content. So thank you guys for watching. I love you guys, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a good one.